That's 23 here in today's Knife Therapy. We have 5 high-value EDC knives worth checking out. First one we have is the Miguron Pelora. This knife comes in at 7.5 inches, and it has a 3.25-inch blade. So as you can see, it's right in the middle of the Ontario Rat 1 and 2. You have 14C 28M blade steel on this one. That's what kind of drew me to it, because that's an excellent high-value budget steel. You can get it stupid sharp, and it takes a very fine edge, a good polished edge as well. Blade shape on this one is nice. You have a classic drop point with somewhat of a slicer full flat grind on here. It tapers up toward the front, kind of like the Hinder knives do. You have a decently robust tip for doing some maybe light prying or some detail work with it. You have a good sharpening choil on here that clears a plunge and should give you a little bit of sharpening life before it starts to widen up in the back over there. You have a nice stone wash finish on the blade with a with a horizontal satin on the flats. Nice touch. No jimping, but I didn't find it needed in all the testing I did with this. I think this one performed pretty well and everything I cut. It's ground pretty decently thin at 18 thousandths behind the edge, or around 18 thousandths behind the edge. And it came with a pretty good edge on it. It wasn't the sharpest of the bunch that we're going to talk about today, but it came sharp. It was cutting phone book paper. Let's see if it still slices phone book paper after all the cutting I did with it. Well, it's got some rough spots in the back over there. The action on this is pretty snappy. You have dual thumb studs right here. Nice access to them. Nice and snappy. You're riding on ceramic bearings and a ceramic detent ball. Your G10 is peel ply G10. Flat scales. Somewhat blocky, but it is wide, so it does fill out the hand nicely. I didn't have any noticeable hot spots during the testing. I didn't really feel the pocket clip. Now, it's not the most comfortable because it's blocky and it's flat, but it wasn't where I had any hot spots during it. Just over prolonged periods, you know, the harder edges may start to bother you. Now, they're not sharp or anything. They did a good job of chamfering the edges on all the sides. You have a milled titanium pocket clip that actually functions pretty nicely, and at 48 bucks, that's a very nice added touch. So overall, I think this would make a great work knife for somebody, especially at the price point. 14C is an excellent budget steel, probably one of my favorites, that and 154 cm. And overall, it's a good knife if you like the aesthetics and you don't mind a little bit blockier of a handle, but it does fill out the hand nicely. Go ahead and give this one a shot. I must say, this one right here really shocked me. I found this one on White Mountain Knives coming from CKC, our Canadian knife company. This is the Sleeper. I thought it was a good-looking knife overall. The OEM to this knife is Shielded Knives. It's coming in at a total length of 7.6 inches, 3.3-inch blade, and it's probably right in the middle of those as well. This one has a beautiful drop point that has that low point right here that is about in line with the center of the pivot. So it's going to be good at just about any cutting you throw at it. Blade steel on this one is 14C 28N stainless steel. Once again, absolutely love it. And this one came probably the sharpest out of box out of all 5. There was one that was pretty darn close to this one. It's got a nice high saber grind on this, saber flat grind. Comes down to a pretty thin edge of around 16 to 17 thousandths behind the edge. And I must say, this thing performed the best out of the bunch. Very slicey blade. You have a full forward finger choil that I can fit my finger all the way up on. But if you have fat sausage fingers, you may not be able to get all the way up on it. It's nice and comfortable, locked in. You have a decently robust tip there for doing some light tip work, some detail work as well. You can easily get that tip down to do some drag work. You do have a row of jimping on this one that is grippy. It sits perfect in the choke back position or the normal grip. Choked up, if I kind of pull my hand back, I can get that jimping, but of course, you know, up front like I normally would. I don't think the jimping's needed way up there anyway, but The knife has pretty good action. It's riding on multi-row ceramic bearings and a ceramic detent ball. It has a very snappy action. Nice large size blade hole that I can get your finger low, so they can tune that detent as strong as they want almost, and you should still be able to flick it out. You also have dual thumb studs if you rather the thumb studs. Easy, snappy. You can slow roll it from the hole as well. Of course, you could do like the Spidey drop with it. You know, the sky's the limit when it comes to these bigger blade holes. However, being that it is multi-row bearings, you would think this would be, you know, a free dropper. I mean, it's still smooth. It's not something that bothers me enough to make it a deal breaker, because I'm going to tell you all right now, I absolutely love this knife. I enjoyed it in every sense. It's very fidgety if that's your thing. And let's go back to these handles, because this was a star of the show as well. It's got blue canvas micarta scales. You have Torx T8 on the pivot and all the body screws and the clip screws. You have a beautiful, beautiful contouring on the scales. And it's going to be hard to show you this, but it dips down right here and it kind of swells like a fixed blade would in the center. And the center is like 0.60, which is awesome. Awesome when you're doing heavier cutting. Fills out the hand nicely, and these micarta scales are nice and soft. They knocked any hard edges off. It was extremely, extremely comfortable. In the choke up position, I could get really close to the work, you know, doing wood carving and stuff like that. I could get right up on that edge and get the full length of that edge. And choke back is just as comfortable, if not more comfortable, because you have that swell I'm talking about. Very, very nice job on the ergos. The pocket clip is a deep carry wire pocket clip that's tip upright, hand carry only. Once again, it rode well in the pocket. It kept the knife kind of canted like this, keeping it out of the way. Carried really well, held it really, really, really well, and it had just enough ramp to get through my jeans just fine, and the micarta keeps it nice and grippy, so it's not going to slide out the pocket easy. The lockup on it is rock solid. No play up or down, no side-to-side play whatsoever. Your lockup is sitting, I'd say, at around 40, maybe 50%. That's super, super solid. Very comfortable to disengage that lock bar, because you have this little cutout in the choil area. Then you have that nice chamfer right there, and enough thickness on there so it's not too thin. Very comfortable. They're inset stainless steel liners that have been skeletonized on the top and bottom, saving on the weight. This one comes in at 4 ounces, and I think for the overall size and girth of this knife, I think 4 ounces is excellent. My only nitpicks and complaints on this knife is this is just a very minor nitpick. That action, you'd think it would be much, much smoother on the multi-row bearings. But like I said, it's not a deal breaker for sure. It doesn't really bother me at all. And of course, like I said, I think they missed the mark on not having it lefty friendly, because it's such an easy knife to manipulate left-handed. And lastly, would have to be the price. If you get this on their site, it's like 124 Canadian, whatever that is. I got this off of White Mountain Knives for $100. Now, from what some of these small, this is their first design, very small company. So what some of these knives are costing, I understand, but I think it would have been maybe better at like $80. And hopefully they come back in stock at White Mountain Knives soon. I think they're still available. The last time I checked, I'm pretty sure they were still available on their site. I will have it linked. Like I said, I don't know exactly what 130 or 125 Canadian is. So I don't know if it does that conversion for you or not, or if it's the same. I don't know. Check this edge out real quick. Still feels pretty good. Yeah, it's got one hang up. I call that good. Next up, we have the Kubey Creon KU336E. And I'm pretty sure this is Kubey's first button lock. I could be mistaken, but I don't recall seeing any other ones. Now, this is a smaller knife. Its total length is 6.77 inches, so it's a medium to smaller knife. Blade length of 2.87 inches. And as you can see here with the Ontario Rat Model 2 is bigger, and the Civivi Elementum is just a little bigger overall. The initial price on these is 70 bucks, and I know that's a little high, but they always come down after they've been out for a little while. But let's see what you get here. You have a nice full flat ground blade, nice drop point on here, beautiful blade shape of AUS 10 steel, and Kubey does a good job with their AUS 10. This one is ground pretty darn thin to around 16 thousandths behind the edge. You have nice dual fullers on this one that you can use to deploy, but you got to kind of hook your fingernail in there. You do have a pretty large sharpening choil there that's going to give you a ton of sharpening life, but I much rather see a usable forward finger choil. You can kind of do that pistol grip to it, but that's just going to get more things hung up in it. But you usually just have to kind of adjust for that. It does have a bead blasted finish that I don't love, but I see too many of the budget knives like that. I haven't had any of their AUS 10 with the bead blast rust on me yet, but I do take care of them. So, you know, I don't know how that is in the summertime because I haven't carried this one when I'm sweating yet. You do have some jimping here. It is kind of aggressive because it's that wide cut. And it definitely grabs the thumb. And if I'm choked, if I'm back like this, I can get up on it, but I can overshoot it pretty easily if I need to. I can get pretty close to that tip for doing fine detail work. This one performed pretty darn nicely with everything I cut. It has a low tip here, so the belly's not super crazy, but you do have, you know, a very small blade. At 2.87 inches overall, you're lacking even more cutting edge because of the larger choil. So you don't have a bunch of blade, but you could still get a good bit of work done here. I mean, I show it when I do the testing. I was more than happy with the performance of the knife. They usually do 10 times better after I put my own edge on them. This one came pretty good out of box. It wasn't the sharpest by any means, but it was perfectly a-okay for me. Let's check it out, see how that sharpness still is. I'm kind of curious. Yeah, see, it's got some drags there. Definitely has a little bit of damage to it. Now, let's look over the action. It's on ceramic bearings and a ceramic detent. Perfectly designed flipper tab. It's canted back, and it has fine cut jimping. So literally you just pull back on it and it comes rocketing out. Nice snappy action, a good detent with that button lock. And once you depress it, it is free dropping. And let's check out. I call that a pass. I did that off camera as well, and rock solid. Excellent job, Kubey. No play any direction, up or down, left or right. Okay, so overall, as a button lock, I think they did an excellent job. Nice and solid. Does have a little bit of stick, but nothing terrible to where I can't disengage it. It's just something reassuring that it is locked up. And I think it's because their button's very tight fitted in there, because I did take this one apart. So overall, good job. Can't wait to see what they do next with the next button lock. Next, we have another Knafs Lander. This is the 14C28N version that he just dropped. The only difference is the steel and contoured micarta scales. So you got micarta scales and they're contoured. I like the 14C. They still need to extend that sharpening choil because it widens up immediately. But overall, excellent blade shape, decently thin. I mean, it's a good worker, good EDC knife. That's, you know, it's lightweight, easy to carry. You have the easy remove scales, pull them off, pop them on without messing with the action or taking the actual frame apart. Fairly comfortable. Now, it is very narrow scales, so you're going to have to grip it a lot tighter to keep a good grip in your hand. In some grips, I did feel that pocket clip because of the contouring. It makes it a little bit skinnier in hand. It wasn't, you know, any major hot spots, just something I felt, and I was able to scoot a little bit further up on those scales to kind of negate that problem. But overall, I thought it performed nicely, and I much prefer 14C over the D2. Now, the price tag on this one's the, you know, only thing that is pretty steep. For the 14C 28N, you're going to pay $80, and the D2 is $58, and a lot of people didn't like that. But, you know, he is a small, very small company, so he's probably not getting these super huge runs like some of the big, you know, companies do. And he has the middleman of getting these OEM'd. Pretty sure the OEM on this is Kubey, if I'm not mistaken. It's either Kubey or QSP. I think it was Kubey. So depending on, you know, if you're okay with that price or not, you know, is all I can say. You know, I wanted to check it out. I still think it's steep, but I like Ben and I didn't mind supporting him. So that's why I ended up picking it up. And like I said, I like 14C as well. If you haven't seen my full testing and review of the D2 version, you can check that out as well. It's up on the channel now. Before I go on to the next one, just want to let y'all know I'll have links to all these knives down in the description. One that is the CRKT Dextro. This is a TJ Schwartz design, and that's why I ended up picking it up, because I like his designs a lot. And I want to give CRKT a try again, because I just haven't had good luck with them. The knife comes in at $58, and you have a D2 blade with a low saber grind. It's pretty thick behind the edge at like 24 thousandths. So this could be a good work knife. It came very, very sharp. It was either tied with the Sleeper or just a little bit under the Sleeper. Very sharp. Slicey, so it's going to slice well until it starts to dull. Then you can really feel that extra thickness. I did feel the thickness when I was cutting that tubing. That's something that I usually feel, that thickness, because it kind of collapses onto the sides of the primary grind. But overall, you know, it did good, especially with how sharp it is. Excellent blade shape for cutting on flat surfaces if you have to skin something. It is a higher tip drop point than I prefer, but it's still, I think it's an attractive knife overall, and it still did fairly well. No jimping up top. I didn't think it was needed, because you have a nice flat portion to put your thumb, and you do have the guard being made by the flipper tab. It does have a sharpening choil that does clear that plunge, and you might have one sharpening before it starts to widen up. Something I would have liked to see them extend a little bit. But at least if you had to, you could make that, because there's a stop pin up front. You could make a little cutout with the Dremel if you needed to widen it up yourself. The total length on this one is 7.8 inches with a 3.18 inch blade. So it's a medium, full-size EDC knife. You do have a pretty robust tip there for doing piercing tasks and maybe doing some tip work, but you're going to have to hold it up high because of that high tip. You have pretty good action on here, pretty drop shut, just with a few light shakes. You have dual deployment, flipper tab, and thumb stud. There's no jimping there, and I didn't have any problem slipping it off, but it would have been nice for a little bit of jimping. You can do a light switch on it, just pulling it back, or you could load up and do the push button. I prefer the light switch just because it's more comfortable, but it is pretty snappy riding on bearings, and the thumb studs are comfortable as well. Nice and snappy there. The scales on this are aluminum. They have a black hard anodizing on it. Almost looks like an orange peel finish up close. And it's not super slick. And like I said, you have that nice guard in the open position from that flipper tab. The handle was pretty darn comfortable. It's not contoured, but they have these large chamfers that gives it that feeling of being contoured. And I didn't really have any hot spots to speak of. You have a Torx T8 on the pivot, Torx T6 for the body screws. I would have much rather see the Torx T8 all around. You have a large lanyard hole. That would have been nice to have a hidden one back here. You have some neon green accent on the pivot collar and on the aluminum back spacer. You do have this added aesthetic milled out onto both sides of the aluminum. You do have a deep carry tip up, a right hand carry only pocket clip, and it's fairly deep, you know, that much sticking out in that lanyard. If you do use a lanyard, is sticking above the pocket, so that's well done. And they did inset the pocket clip into the aluminum, excellent job, and they countersunk the screws in there. Awesome job on that. So at $55, I don't think it's, you know, super out of line, especially collaborating with a awesome custom knife maker like TJ Swartz. I think it's an attractive knife, comfortable in hand, good action. I just think the grind's a little thick, but, you know, keep it sharp. It'll slice just fine for you. Overall, not a bad knife if none of the things I talked about were deal breakers for you. I think you'll be happy with the knife overall. So overall, which one of these were your favorite? For me, it would have to be the Sleeper. I still love this knife. I'm going to sharpen that one up after this video to see how it sharpens up. Cool seeing Kubey starting to try out the button locks, and they seem to have nailed it on their first try, unless, like I said, I'm wrong. The Pelora, make another good work knife overall. The Knafs Lander and 14C, I would have loved to see it start with that, but you know, not bad, but the price is a little hefty. Definitely like to hear what y'all thought about this format once again, and which one was your favorite? Do you own any of them? Do you plan on getting any of them? All right, guys and girls, I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.